And with that, I am very honored to welcome Eric Rosenthal, the founder and executive director of Disability Rights International, whose organization has been working on this topic for many years and has picked up the call to work at this intersection and this nexus of trafficking in persons and the rights of persons with disabilities. So I have 3 questions for you, Eric. The first is, what are some of the patterns of exploitation of persons with disabilities that are particularly prevalent in the context of institutionalization?
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity, particularly to Special Rapporteur Hagras for bringing in the force of the legal protections of people with disabilities and demonstrating how critically important it is to protect large numbers of people with disabilities around the world. Your link with the CRPD, and particularly for us, Article 19, on the right to live in the community with choices equal to others. Because our work, we have worked for now 30 years in more than 46 countries. We have, we set out to document the conditions of people in institutions, orphanages, psychiatric facilities, social care homes. We are sitting on top of mounds of data, mounds of documentation about horrendous abuses of large numbers of people who are segregated from society in institutions. And one thing keeps coming up in every part of the world that we have found is that when you can coerce people, lock them up, separate them from society, take away their rights to make choices about their lives, to represent themselves to go to court, those people are going to be trafficked. They are going to be exploited. They are going to be abused. It is my view that on a global level, this is one of the, if not the greatest human rights violation going on in the world today on a very, very large scale. The numbers of people at institutions have been seriously undercounted because of the lack of oversight, the lack of documentation. We have found unregulated facilities where these things are going on, and there is so clearly a profit motive that makes this fit within the legal framework of trafficking. It is our view that you cannot stop trafficking and abuse if you don't stop segregation and institutionalization. The two are inextricably linked. Back when the U.S. government was in the business of documenting this, we were very pleased that the Trafficking in Persons report had identified institutionalization of children inherently as a risk of trafficking. And it is our view that it's not just institutionalization of children, but adults. We have to look at any form of segregation as number one step towards trafficking on a large scale, routine, common, and you can't end one without ending the other. Let me just throw out just a couple little examples because people just don't normally think of this as trafficking. In one country where we were documenting forced sterilization of women, we go to an institution in a community, a small institution. Are women in this facility sterilized? The director says, and I'm holding a video camera as he speaks into the camera, showing that this is so routine and open, he doesn't even need to hide it. Yes, all of the women are routinely sterilized in this institution. Why are they sterilized? Well, because when the workers come in, we're repairing the 3rd floor, there's plumbing that needs to be done. Of course, they're going to have their way with the women locked up in this facility on their way to doing the plumbing. Is this trafficking? Who's getting the benefit? You pay a little less for your plumber if you know that they can also exploit the women in the institution while they are at it. And then, of course, when we expose this facility, we find out that not only are they using these women, but the staff are bringing the women to their homes to clean the homes. So it's forced sex, it's forced labor, girls who grew up in orphanages brought to institutions. Then, when we expose this facility and we close down the facility, there are no community services, so the survivors of this abuse and institutionalization are moved to other institutions where they are similarly at risk. This is a case that we've reported to the United Nations, we've publicized in the press. When our staff tried to get survivors of these abuses into community safe spaces, local authorities threatened us with criminal prosecution if anything happened wrong because of the basic failure of the community services to protect them. If you're going to be so bold as to think that these people could possibly live in the community, then we're going to point and hold you responsible. The human rights authorities in this locality also similarly threatened us. So you're not going to get action. We've got the documentation. One of the calls in this was for robust documentation. We know where the abuses are going on. We have the documentation. In almost any country, I can point to you where we have worked in Latin America, in East Africa, in Eastern Europe, where we have focused. We are sitting on mounds of documentation. Please look at driadvocacy.org for our reports on the patterns of exploitation. We have found on the websites, come in, be a volunteer at our orphanage. So, Americans can look on a website, go down to which orphanage, get on a boat, go upstream to a small indigenous village, grab a baby. It's all on the websites. It's all out in public. We documented, we go back to the facility on a hilltop with a helipad. They have a giraffe and a zoo to please the volunteer tourists. And what happened to those children? They disappear. We have the documentation. So it's not about documentation, it's about political courage and political action to stand up to the criminals, to stand up to the traffickers, to take action. And if you don't support the disability groups who are on the ground with this knowledge, who are fighting this, who are taking their lives into their hands to fight it, it's never going to happen. We've got to get the resources to the courageous activists on the ground who are working with us to fight it. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Eric. And really, the work of DRI has been so instrumental in shedding light on the many abuses that happen in these kinds of institutional settings, including this issue of trafficking in persons. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit more about what you all have observed on the ground during that documentation, but also knowing that your work doesn't end at documentation, but extends to legal advocacy. Can you tell us about some of the effective current remedies for trafficking and what you hope potential remedies might be down the line?
To us, the inherent risk point for trafficking is the patterns of segregation and coercion that is institutionalization. So if you don't get to the root problem of institutionalization, of a lack of support in the community and institutionalization, you're not going to solve the problem of trafficking. And I can't tell you the frustration of the many international development organizations and humanitarian relief groups that we work with. The problems of institutionalization are so difficult. We know that institutionalization contributes to impairment and increased disability. So if you're going to integrate that population into the community, they're going to require supports, and it's going to require extra assistance. So it's so easy to say we're going to go into this country and we're going to support more inclusive schools and more inclusive programs, and we'll get around to those people who've been put in institutions, the 10 million children in institutions, the 20, 30 million people, adults locked away in institutions. We'll get around to them later once we create inclusive communities. My answer in terms of remedies, and I speak before getting to the legal, and I will talk about the legal cases that we're bringing, is to the international development community. You can't assume those people are safe and taken care of, and we're going to create inclusive communities first. Those are the people who are suffering the most extreme abuses, where every day counts. Their lives are being taken away from them. They're being tortured, exploited, abused, and dying early death. And unless we deal with that segregated population urgently, immediately, with targeted support, that abuse, the most extreme abuses known to humankind, are going to continue. And when I say humankind, obviously women and girls are particularly at risk. men and boys are overlooked, and they are fodder, and they are exploited, and they are abused. And I can think of the faces. I will mention, in Guatemala, we brought a case to the Inter-American System of Human Rights. Eduardo and Ricardo Costelecki, God bless them. They were the named plaintiffs in our case before the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights, locked up in the Federico Mora Psychiatric Facility. They had the courage, despite the risks, to speak out. We brought in BBC. It's documented on our website. It's called The Most Dangerous Institution in the World. Let me just tell you, it's a great BBC documentation, but it's not the most dangerous institution in the world. It's a typical institution. And Ricardo Costelecki was willing to speak out that when he was locked up in that psychiatric facility, the guards, the staff, took a little money from outsiders who came in and had their way with them. It's located next to a prison in Zone 18 of Guatemala City. It's essentially controlled by narco-traffickers. Anyone who happens to have a psychiatric breakdown or in need of services, children with intellectual disabilities who age out of orphanages can be dumped there. It is a dumping ground, and those people, hundreds of people, fodder for exploitation. Ricardo and Estuar spoke out, and he said in front of the BBC cameras, "I know I'm taking my life into my own hands in speaking out, being systematically and continuously raped, destroyed my life, but I want to speak out." Thank you, Estuar. Thank you, Ricardo, for speaking out. They happened to be lucky enough that they had a house in the community and were able to leave and move to that house, and then were promptly murdered as soon as they left the facility. The local police said they were raising chickens in their house, so the neighbors got upset and didn't want them raising chickens, and so they killed them, and it was their fault. But those people who spoke out, I do not have the proof of criminal responsibility. They took a risk, they spoke out, and they died. And we are taking that case, and it is pending before the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights. We have a number of cases, some of whom are not public, and so I cannot tell you exactly which cases, but both through the optional protocol of the CRPD and through the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights, that after years, we are on the verge of tremendously powerful victory ordering countries to end institutionalization, to strike down their guardianship laws that have allowed a total denial of access to justice in many of these facilities. You're locked up, the director of the facility becomes your guardian. So if you are abused at that facility, you can't take your case to a court, you can't file your case because the director of the facility who is abusing you is your guardian. The Inter-American Commission has struck down the guardianship laws and ordered the creation of supported decision-making, ordered the creation of community services, ordered the end to institutionalization, ordered reparations for thousands of individuals who are locked up, exploited, and abused. And what happens next? In many of these countries, they've never seen community integration. They've never seen community support. So the law professors and us lawyers can celebrate the great successes at the legal level, but ending this now requires the really hard part. The really hard part is creating in a country that is, fighting for its own democracy, has very limited resources. How do you support people to live in the community with choices equal to others? Winning the case was the easy part. Implementing the case, getting those people out of that facility so they can live a safe and decent life is the challenge that we now are. We are ready to roll up our sleeves. We've got great support on the ground, and we need all the support we can get in working, because we want to demonstrate that where we've got the clear legal mandate, let's do it, let's get it right, let's show the government is willing to make change. We can do it right now. I want to be able to declare success there so we can replicate this on a global level.
Thank you, Eric, and for such a powerful way to drive us towards implementing this legal framework that the UN Special Rapporteurs and the Duke Human Rights Clinic have really given us. These two tools together, this drive and this framework, I think can compel all of us in this room to take action around this important issue.